Hello people, and welcome to part 2 of my Blender for Absolute Beginners tutorial series. For this tutorial we will go a lot more advanced than the previous snowman. We're going to look at how to do some actual 3D modeling. We're going to look at how to UV unwrap an object, and we're going to look at how to add a more realistic material to that object. But first, I thought I would just show you a couple of things and talk about some of the most basic principles of 3D modeling before we start. So you don't have to follow this, just look at what I'm doing and listen. The main problem with 3D modeling is that you see that these edges are extremely sharp. And if you're sitting by a desk or a table right now, you can feel the edges of that piece of furniture, and you will notice that the edges are kind of smooth, aren't they? And that is one of the most basic things we do in 3D. Try to create smooth, sharp edges. So now I hit Tab and I entered what's called Edit mode. And in here we have what's called vertices. Now these are basically points in 3D space. They're coordinates. And they are connected by what's called edges. And when you have 3 or more connected vertices, you get what's called a face. So we have vertices, we have edges, and we have faces. Now when we make something smooth in 3D, basically what we do is that we cut the hell out of this object and we let the 3D software calculate the smoothest possible point or route between 2 points. And the most common way to do that is by adding what's called a subdivision modifier. And you find these in the modifier tab here on the side. So let's add a subdivision surface modifier. And this weird thing comes out of it. I'm going to add a little more cuts, and you see the more cuts I add, the smoother it becomes. So now we get to the 3D modeling part. How do we keep these edges sharp while being realistically smooth? So again, you don't have to follow this. I'm not gonna tell you which shortcuts I'm using. I will show you that later. But we add cuts along the surface, and the closer together these cuts are, the more sharp the edge will get. But you see that this is still smooth, and if we place a cut further away, you see that it's not as it becomes smoother. So this is basically how we create these kinds of edges in 3D. And here we did nothing, so here's just chaos and mayhem. Okay, I'm going to remove that. And this should be what you are looking at. So let's add a cube. This is going to be the tabletop, the actual surface of the table. And now you can hit Tab, and your cube will become orange. And then we're going to scale it along the Z axis to flatten it. I think this is a pretty okay thickness for a table. And then you can hit 7 on your numpad to view it from the top, and hit SX to scale it along the X axis. And this is, this is a pretty good table. You can hit A to deselect everything, And now let's make this smoothable. So if you add your modifier now, you're going to add modifier and you click subdivision surface. This happens. So let's click this little eye here, and that enables us to not look at the object with this smoother active. And what we're going to do now is we're going to add cuts along every edge. So place your mouse cursor somewhere along the middle of the, well, you see where I have my cursor, and then you hit CTRL R. And now you will, if you move around, you will get this little purple line here. And we want this to be in the middle here. So just move around until you have it in the same position that I have. And then you click your left mouse button. And now you drag it close to the edge of the table. Kind of like this. This is a good cut. And then you do it again, but you place it on the other side of the table. And then we rotate the view. And then we do it again for this side of the table. And then we zoom in on the edge. And we do it here too, until you have something that looks like this. And now we can hit Tab to exit edit mode. And now you can turn your modifier on, and you will see that you have this nice, smooth, sharp edge. And to make it even smoother, with your object selected, you just click Smooth Shading. And that's it. Now we have a smooth tabletop. So let's go ahead and add some legs. And just pause the video now and finish what you're doing, because I'm guessing that you're not done yet. Okay, let's add another cube. Tab to enter edit mode. Scale it down. And tab out of edit mode and place the leg on one of the corners so that you get a better look at how, yeah, that's a pretty good thickness. Maybe a little thicker. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, you should have something like this now. Go into edit mode. View it from either the front or the side, it really doesn't matter. And now you hit A to deselect everything. And now you're going to press Z. This allows you to look at the sort of the frame of the model. This is called wireframe mode, or wireframe view, wire view, whatever the proper terminology is. And then we're going to select this little box here so that we are working with our vertices. And now you're going to hit B on your keyboard, and this will give you this little box. So just click and drag until the bottom vertices are selected. And now you can drag this down to make a leg. You can press Z again to go back to a shaded view. It's a little short, isn't it? Yeah, this is probably good. And hit A to deselect that. And now we are going to do the same thing to the leg. This is all we do when we do 3D. We make cuts to things to help them stay in shape when we add our modifiers. And again, I did this by CTRL R. And then just pay attention to the purple line. Now we don't have to add the modifier to this too. You can just add it to check that your leg is smoothing okay, because we are going to join all these later into one big object. So we can remove the modifier. And well, we need a couple more legs. No, we need 3 more legs. But this time we are not going to duplicate the legs. We are going to make just another instance of that leg, so that we have sort of 1 master leg and 3 slave legs, so that we can change and modify one leg and the others will follow. So you can click here on the little object tab and we can give this a name. Let's call this leg. Oh, we can name the tabletop too. Okay, select the leg. I'm gonna pull this in a bit actually. It's a little too close to the edge. Okay, and then you hit Alt-D and click your mouse and drag. Alt-D is basically how you make a duplicate copy that's not an object of its own. So if we go into, don't do this by the way, I'm just gonna show you how this works. You see that this leg also, it mimics the other leg, our parent leg, so to speak. And let's Alt-D this again and move this to the other side. And let's do it again. Okay, now we have 4 legs. And now we need the little frame. So let's add another cube, Shift A, cube, edit mode, tab, scale it down, exit edit mode and drag it down to where you wanted. And let's move it to the side here. And that's another thing when making what's called a hard surface object, is that every part that is a separate piece in the real world object should be a separate piece on the 3D model. It just looks so much better. And let's scale this along the y-axis. And then let's scale it along the x-axis. It's not, my legs aren't really that accurate. Okay, this is pretty good. And yes, you guessed it. We're going to do the same thing to this. Control R to make a cut along every or close to every edge, and it will allow us to smooth it. And let's call this frame 1, because we are going to do 2 different frame pieces. And then click Alt-D to make another instance of this and place it on the other side. And select the first one again and hit Shift D, because this time we're going to duplicate it. And you can name this frame 2 so that we keep them separated. And then hit R to rotate it, Z because we're going to rotate it along the Z axis, and type 90 degrees. And then we're going to place it here. Okay, but this is too short. So hit Tab to go into edit mode, and then hit Z to go into wireframe mode, and then hit B to get the box selection, and select all the vertices on this side and drag them to the edge of the leg. Hit A to deselect, and pan to the other side and do the same thing. B, select and drag them to the edge of the leg. And then you can hit Z to go back to shaded view and hit Tab to exit edit mode. Okay. Now we need to hit Alt D and duplicate this and drag this to the other side. And now our basic table model is finished. So let's UV unwrap this. Select the tabletop, go into edit mode, hit A until everything is selected. And we are going to use an extremely simple method for UV unwrapping. When everything is selected, hit the U key and press Smart UV Project. And now Blender has basically UV unwrapped this for you. And now you can do the same thing to frame 1. Enter edit mode, tab, select everything, U, Smart UV Project. And the leg, let's find the original leg, there it is. Select everything, U, Smart UV Project. Or project. I always thought it was like a projection, so maybe I have been mispronouncing it this whole time, which would be a little embarrassing, but okay. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. And now we have UV unwrapped this table. You don't have to follow this part. I'm just going to show you what you did. I will show you what this UV editing view is. Well, maybe later, depending on how well this unwrap turned out. But you don't have to pay attention to this. I'm just going to show you. You see, we got these lines. Well, it looks like the faces from the model, and that's exactly what it is. And these tell Blender where an image will go. So basically we will add an image to this surface here. And the image will appear on the model where the corresponding faces are in this UV map. And I can see here that this is going to cause us a little bit of trouble, but don't worry, it's a very quick fix. So let's worry about that later. Let's start with the material. So go into the material tab, add a new material, and let's call this wood. And you will have, once again, you have to make sure that you are working in cycles and not Blender render. And if you don't have cycles available, that means that you have an older version of Blender, so go to their website and download a later version. Okay, wood. Now I have gone ahead and I have downloaded a wood image from a site that's called cgtextures.com. This is an amazing resource, and you should create a membership because they have all kinds of textures available. I chose this texture right here. I will put a link to it in the description, and make sure if you pick another one that it's tiled. And you see they are named tiled if they can tile. Otherwise it's going to look shitty and just mayhem. Okay, so let's add this texture. Under diffuse and color, here on the side you have a little button. Press it, go to texture, and choose image texture. And I am going to go to storage, Blender, tutorial table, diffuse, and this is where I saved my wood image. So just locate yours and hit open image. And now you can go into this little pop-up. You can select texture, and this allows you to view the texture, and this is what I was talking about before. A table does not look like this. This is pretty okay. Since this is our first textured object, it doesn't really matter. But let's fix this anyway. So go into edit mode and click here where you see default and go into UV editing. Okay, we have to select texture here once again. And this is right now, you can see user perspective. If you hit 5, you will enter orthographic, and this is just much easier to work with. So hit 5 on your numpad and you can view it like this instead. So basically we can tell that the longer sides of the table have got the UV map the wrong way. So you can go down here and select this last little button. If we select this one, we will work with basically single vertices. If we select this last one, we will select entire UV islands in one go. So select this one and just hit R90 and it will rotate it in 90 degrees. And do the same with this one. So now the longer ones are fixed. And you can, now this is actually quite all right. And let's go ahead and check that these also are looking good. This is leg 3. Let's select the original leg and add the wood texture. Yeah, same problem here. So let's go into UV editing, hit tab, select everything, and we can see that it's which face is it that is causing all the commotion. I just rotated these in 90 degrees, and yeah, this is looking good. Let's select, this is the original one. Oh, and maybe we should add the material first so we can see what we are doing. Now this is looking good. And what about frame 2? Well, this is not looking good, and that's because we didn't actually unwrap this one yet. And what the hell? Okay, there we are. Sorry, I made a little mistake. Yeah, you see this side is causing some trouble. So rotate 90. Why are these? Oh, never mind. Okay, and that is basically all we have to do. So you can go ahead and save this now. I'm gonna call mine tutorial table and save. And if you're lost, just go back and view it as many times as you have to, because this would confuse me too. And leave a comment if there's something you didn't quite get, and I'll get around to making a new video if I can't explain it in text. Okay, what we're going to do now is we are going to add a lamp. So just hit Shift A, go into lamp and select a point and put it somewhere on top of the model. And now we're going to select rendered view. And this allows us to look at sort of a pre-render, a dirty render, because now we are going to make a more advanced material. So select the table, and you will not see if it's actually selected, but you will know because you will get the materials tab. And if you click down here, you see you get another pop-up menu. We are going to go into the node editor. And this is where the magic happens. Firstly, we are going to add a let's see, where is it? In vector, we're going to add a mapping node. This will allow us to change the scale of the texture. And behind that, we are going to use under input texture coordinate. And once again, you just hit Shift A to get this menu. So mapping and texture coordinate. And we're going to click here where it says UV. Click and hold and drag this to the vector input of the... Oh shit. My phone, sorry. I'm going to turn off the sound and put it in my pocket. Okay, sorry. Oh yeah, and then take the vector output and put it in the vector input of the image texture. And let's see how big this is. Yes, this is much too big. So let's go into the node editor and maybe 0.3 on this scale. Let's see what happened. Oh, no. That is not right. Was it under the texture node, perhaps? Oh yeah, that was the problem. I was in the wrong tab. Now this is a little bit too small. So maybe 0.4. Yeah, this is good. And just do this a couple of times and change the value until you find something that you are happy with. And now we are going to add what's called under shader a mix shader. this will allow us to add sort of a separate material. This diffuse box here is what's called a diffuse node or diffuse material, and this is basically the color of the object, and right now we are using an image texture as the color. And now we're going to add a glossy shader, and this will allow light to bounce off of the object and create highlights. So let's take this glossy shader and put it at the bottom here, and the mix shader. And from my experience with the tables, a good roughness value is usually 0.3. Now you can go back into 3D view and you can see that this looks like hell. And that's because we are going to create a specular map. And a specular map is basically a black and white image which tells the shader where to put the glossy material and where to put the texture. So if it's completely black, that means that the gloss will not appear at all, and if it's completely white, it will only be glossy. Well, if there's light bouncing off of it. So you can go ahead and start GIMP or Photoshop, whichever image manipulator you prefer. And you can go ahead and open your wood texture. And here is mine. And let's desaturate this, make it black and white, and sort of exaggerate the highs and lows of this. This is usually pretty good. Okay, and then export this into maps and call this one specular. Now, normally I would never use a JPEG because they're just not, the quality of JPEGs are just not good enough. But the original image was a JPEG, so I'm gonna stick to a JPEG. And don't compress it, just leave the quality at 100. And now we go back to Blender and we go into Node Editor once again. And we still want these three here. So you can go ahead and select the image texture, this node right here, and duplicate it. And then you press that little, the button, and open your specular map that you just created. And then take the vector output from the mapping and put it in the vector input on the image texture node. And then we're going to take the color output, which, if you remember, is black and white, and add it to our mix shader FAC value. And this basically tells the shader which one to show. And I think it's controlling the bottom shader. So right now we get 50% of the bottom shader, and if we change this to 1, we only get the bottom shader, and 0, we don't get it at all. But we want this value to be controlled by the highs and lows of this texture right here. So connect that to the FAC. And now you can see that we get a lot better highlights. Now this is still a little bit too glossy. So let's go back into the node editor. And we are going to add under color, what's called a mix RGB node, and put it right here. And this is going to mix this texture with a solid color, or you can add another texture to here, but we want a really dark color since our highlights were a little too strong. So this will basically just darken this image. Now you can do this in GIMP or Photoshop as well, but this way you get more control of the output. And this is starting to look pretty good. So let's go into solid view and move this light so that we can see the sides as well, because if you remembered, we scaled the texture down. So there is a chance that it will now appear too small on our legs and the frame. So let's go back to rendered view. And yes, you can see that this is maybe a little bit too small. Let's add another light source so that we can get a better look. Now that's actually pretty okay. It might be a little too small. But anyway, let's pretend that this is... No, it is too small, actually. So that's good. Then I can show you how to remedy that. So now we are at leg 3, and this is our original leg. Go into edit mode, UV editing, and then just select everything and scale it down. And you see on the side there that the texture is getting larger. That's pretty good. Okay, so let's finalize this table. We can select our lights, hit X to remove them, and then we hit the A key to select every part of our table, and then hit Control J. No. Oh, I just didn't hit the button. Okay, Control J. And now this is one big object. And you can see that the subsurfing modifier has been applied to all parts of the model. We can hit smooth. Your table is now finished. So let's add a camera. Wow, this is a really small table. Rotate the camera to point towards the table so we can get a good shot. You can just experiment with this. I will show you a better way to control the camera in the next episode, but for now, just do what you can with what you have. It's just a test. And then you can go ahead and add a light source. Let's use a lamp. Let's put one lamp right about there. And maybe another one behind the camera. And maybe a third one a little further away. And then hit render. And now you have created a more or less realistic table in Blender. And don't forget to save your file. And then hit F3 to save your image file so that you can show your friends. Oh, okay, that's it. Thank you for watching, and please show me your table. Bye bye.